The Pittsburgh Steelers had a very strong showing in their third preseason game, winning for a third time in a row, 26-20 over the Detroit Lions, with their only preseason game at Heinz Field in front of fans for the first time since 2019. I'm Chris Carter here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'll give you my post-game reactions. I was at the game, talking to players and coaches afterwards, after the game, and observing it from the press box. I'll give you all my analysis right here on the Locked On Steelers podcast.
You are Locked On Steelers, your daily Pittsburgh Steelers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter, bringing you your daily dose of all things on the Pittsburgh Steelers. As always, you can watch this show on YouTube, listen to it on Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts, or Odyssey. All of those different ways help us out. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. That helps us out as well. And if you leave us a 5-star review with a positive comment on Apple, you get a special shout at the end of the show. As you can see, we are doing a special show here on Sunday after the game. It's late at night. I'm home from Heinz after being at Heinz Field, but wanted to give you guys a bonus episode, just an initial reaction to the game, so you can get my analysis and my breakdown before we get back into the regularly scheduled programming of Monday through Friday here on Locked On Steelers, because we got to talk about this game. And man, there were some really impressive things, especially from the starters. First and foremost, Pat Freiermuth looked amazing in the red zone. He was targeted 3 times in the night, caught 2 passes, both for touchdowns, 19 yards. You saw when Ben Roethlisberger got them down the field that he was able to target in the red zone. You saw efficiency in the offense, and all in all, this was the rookie tight end the Steelers wanted. This was why they made sure to get him in the second round. You know, some people, myself included, were a little sketchy, there's other real big needs on this roster. I don't know about going and getting a second tight end right now when you got Eric Ebron at the number 1. But when you look at Eric Ebron dropping a pass to start the game on a third down where Ben Roethlisberger created, we'll get to Ben in a little bit because he was phenomenal as well. And then you see Pat Freiermuth have that kind of success. That speaks volumes to, you know, what they think he can do, and the confidence that they have him to keep him on the field that much with the first team offense. What was really cool too was after the game, we're talking to players. You know, Pat Freiermuth spoke a little bit, but the person who was most glowing about him wasn't even Ben Roethlisberger. It was Najee Harris. When we were talking to him, and he was being his normal animated Najee self, you know, giving us funny answers, making jokes with the media, as he has all throughout his rookie training camp. But listen to how he responds when he just gets the slightest opportunity to talk about Pat Freiermuth.
On that drive, you had that play. Pat caught the touchdown. Kendrick would.
Y'all see Pat? Y'all see that?
I was gonna say
Did
Kendrick.
y'all interview him?
Kendrick was at center. Dan was at right tackle. Is it too early to say you guys have something special with this rookie group?
Man, so with this rookie group, man, we get better every day. You know, coming in, I feel like, you know, a lot of us had a good opportunity to play as a rookie. So, you know, I always tell them, you know, this. They would tell us too that, you know, this rookie class, you know, we draft a lot of offensive players. I don't think we draft a lot of offensive players here. Not really, no. So I mean, we did that. So to get better every day as a rookie, as rookies, you know, it was really emphasized that a lot this year because a lot of us will play early. So you know, I'm glad and happy to see Pat, KG, and Dan all out there, you know, making plays and doing a good job. Can't be any more excited. I was excited for that. Yep. Yeah, I interviewed him, right?
What did you say to Pat after he has those touchdowns?
All on his back. You see him? I'll jump on his back. I'm just excited for him, man, because he was scared as hell of the tunnel. Ask him that, because he got all mad at me. I was scared of the tunnel. He was scared of the tunnel.
He didn't know what you guys were supposed to do either, running out.
He knew better than me, but he was just scared. And I don't know what's going on. And I was like, Pat, dude, calm down. What are you doing? I don't know what I'm doing, but you're making me feel like I'm out of place right now. You know?
How did it feel with Ben under center, just kind of running the offense, getting, you know?
Yeah, man, when Ben's in the game, you know, you feel the presence of
And that was the thing. When Najee Harris was in there, also he had a really strong play. You didn't get to see too much of his run game. He had 4 carries for 10 yards. That's not the kind of night that you want on Najee Harris on the ground. But when you saw the ball was in his hands, he was making plays. He had a really big play. He was targeted 3 times, caught 2 passes, had a 46-yarder. And if you were watching the game, you saw that play. He caught it just out in front of Ben, stiff-armed one guy, hit the sideline, and he exploded down the field, setting up an eventual Pat Freiermuth touchdown. He had a solid day. But, I mean, again, the excitement that you hear him talking about Pat Freiermuth and about Kendrick Green and about Dan Moore Jr., Najee Harris, this guy isn't just a playmaker. He does sound like a leader in the very near future. He's still a rookie, still a guy learning what it means to be in the NFL and be in the locker room. But man, those things sound great from him coming back as he wants to talk about other guys, not just about his big play on the night. Pat Freiermuth absolutely showed up and showed out in this game. But who also did that was Ben Roethlisberger, and he finished this night 8 of 10, 137 yards, 2 touchdown passes. And the Steelers were almost flawless with him in there. In the first drive, and that's crazy. The first drive was the only time the Steelers punted in the game, and it came on a 3rd down where Ben Roethlisberger spun out of the pocket, made multiple guys miss, found Eric Ebron beyond the sticks, hit him right in the numbers, and Ebron just couldn't bring it in. An unfortunate play for him, but that was the only time that the Steelers had to punt in this entire game. And I think that speaks volume to the efficiency of how this offense is working. The fact that they were able to move the ball down the field. I mean, the Lions, sure, yeah, it was preseason and they were having some problems, but all in all, this was a really good showing, especially from that first team offense. The playmakers were clicking, and Ben Roethlisberger was on fire. He was spreading the ball around. I mean, you look at some of these numbers, there were certain guys that caught more than others. Ebron had 4 catches. Juju Smith-Schuster had 5 catches. But, I mean, they made sure to work the ball. The guys like James Washington, Kalen Ballage, when the backups were in. Deontay Johnson had that deep ball, for 43 yards. It was just different guys all throughout the game, especially when Ben was in. And what was interesting was Ben Roethlisberger connected on that 43-yarder. It was a bomb. It wasn't the best throw, and he even acknowledged as much. But listen to how he talks about that throw and how he felt about his offensive line and his teammates.
The deep ball to Deontay, I didn't like the throw. I think I put too much air on it. Luckily for me, he's a heck of a football player, and he made a play for me.
Ben, you guys have several, I don't know about several, but a couple 3, 3rd and 3, 3rd and 2, 3rd and 4. Seemed like it was shotgun, 3 wides. Is that still going to be pretty heavy?
I think that was the plan for this week. I think we've got a lot of options, but we wanted to show some different looks tonight on those situations. We had an idea of what we might get. I know you've got a small sample size on the defense, but we had an idea, and I think we converted a lot of them, not all of them. I thought it went well. I know Chooks will kick himself for the first play. Probably just a little antsy. Would have been a nice play to Deontay. See what happened. Other than that, I don't know about penalties. I don't remember what we had, but got hit once on the touchdown, but it was a longer developing play, so you're not really mad about it. So all in all, I'm happy with the way they played.
And that's just the thing. The offensive line, they weren't elite or anything like that, but you saw them giving Ben, Mason, and Dwayne Haskins protection throughout the night. They still got to get in sync with the run game, and that's something that you saw, again, not really running a whole lot. Here's the thing. The Steelers moved the ball a lot. They moved the chains a lot. When Ben was in there, they converted every 3rd down except the one where Ebron dropped. That's efficiency. That's moving the chains. That's giving your defense time to rest. And ultimately, they ended up 8 of 15 on 3rd downs. I believe they were 4 or 5 on 3rd downs when Ben was in there. And that's what you look at the most. You want to see how he's running the offense and how they're moving with him. But also, the majority of how this team got their 1st downs was through the air. 17 total first downs through passing, only 2 through rushing. They also had 1 from a penalty. But that's an interesting thing to watch moving forward, because Ben talked about they were trying some different things. They wanted to show some different things and figure some things out. But this is a team with Najee Harris that they want to run the football. Art Rooney, the team owner, has said during the offseason, we are going to be a better running football team. They got a whole new offensive line. They drafted Najee Harris with their 1st round pick. those are investments that they want to see cash out. And I will say this, the Steelers offensive line, we'll get to this in the next segment, but the Steelers offensive line, I thought, showed some really good glimpses of what they can be. But like I've said all throughout this offseason and all throughout training camp, it takes time to gel as a unit, to be on the same foot, the same unison, the same mind. Certain things weren't clean, but you did see the effort that you wanted to see from this group, going out and seeing these guys. And you saw the starters. You saw Zach Banner start the game. You saw Kendrick Green, Trey Turner. You saw Chukuma Okorafor, Kevin Dotson. And then you saw Dan Moore Jr. go in after, I think it was the second offensive drive. He went in and he looked really solid. We'll get into the offensive line in a bit here, because you got to talk about them. We'll also talk about the defense right after this break, right here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Stay with us. Back here on the Locked On Steelers podcast, I'm your host, Chris Carter. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Carter Critiques. If you're enjoying the show, please subscribe to us. We're on Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts, as well as Odyssey, and now YouTube as well. So check out all of our content. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. It really helps us out. This is, of course, a shorter show. It's not our normal, Monday through Friday. So we're not doing 3 segments. We're going to finish it with this second segment here. But as you know, if this is the first time you're coming across this podcast, this is something we do Monday through Friday, get through. But because it was a Saturday game, I wanted to make sure our listeners had something to chew on the day after the game. So let's keep rolling it here. Now, the Steelers offensive line, they ultimately showed that they could play together. They only allowed 1 real sack on the night. Ben Roethlisberger talking about in the last segment with the clip that we showed, that he did get hit. But he even said later in that same press conference that he was like, I kind of wanted to get hit because that first hit kind of like wakes you up and is like, okay, now I'm in. It's kind of like, when you're diving into a pool, it's like, hey, we got to just get integrated into this thing that we know that we're going to have to do. And so Ben Roethlisberger, feeling that, but he seemed to like his protection for most of the night. I thought the offensive line definitely missed opportunities to give Najee Harris some better openings. Again, 4 carries for 10 yards. He had a couple tackles for loss. I think it was two gains that were really solid, and then 2 tackles for loss that slowed him down, and it didn't allow the run game to really get going at any point. But again, this group is coming together. I asked Mike Tomlin how he felt about the Steelers' offensive line, and this was his response after the game. How did you feel about the offensive line's overall performance on the night?
I just thought in general, I thought that they really finished. It seemed like our power was falling the direction that we desire for it to fall. I thought guys were finishing with great effort. There were examples of that. You saw 79 RC down the field finishing the block. You saw 53 on several occasions really finishing. Hopefully that's a catalyst for us as we move forward.
And that's the thing, because remember, Adrian Clem, new offensive line coach for the Steelers, all he's been preaching is being more physical, being dominant, setting tones, making sure the opponent knows that you're here to run the play, to own the line of scrimmage. And there were several times you saw good push from the group, but sometimes maybe a guy went a little bit too far to the left, opened up a lane that he didn't, or missed a guy entirely. And that comes when you're an aggressive group and you're trying to learn how to be aggressive together. It's not always an easy thing to develop. But on some of the plays he was talking about, Kendrick Green, you saw him finishing people. When he means finishing people, it means at the end of the play, you're not being nice. You're not just holding him up. You're driving him. You're keeping your hands on the inside. You're driving him and owning that leverage to make sure that you're owning the defender and saying, hey, the space is being created. Even if the play is not coming my way, I'm finishing this play and I'm making sure this defender is not a factor in this play. And Rashad Coward, the play that he was talking about, there was a run, didn't even go for much. I think it went for 1 yard to Jalen Samuels, and this is like third quarter-ish. But you saw Rashad Coward just take his man like 10 yards downfield and just pow him, like pancake him right on his back. And you saw him get up and he kind of like roared into the sky, and all the offensive linemen came over and like gave him the head bud dap. It's like, yeah, good job, man. That was really cool. That's what the Steelers want to see. Yes, they want to see coordination, but again, that takes time. But what you can do right now is be physical, be dominant, show that you're here to win those one-on-ones more often than you lose them. And I thought the Steelers offensive line did show that as a group. So all things there, that was solid. We will see in the last preseason game against the Panthers this upcoming Friday how they perform in that game. But got to get to, of course, other parts of this team. The deep ball to Deontay Johnson for Ben Roethlisberger did hang up there, but like he said, Deontay Johnson came down with it. And Ben kind of knows he needs to put less air under that. I think he's getting a feel for that. He hasn't had to do that into live coverage for a while, so he's getting his feel back. But again, the efficiency of the offense was the key. Defensively, I mean, I don't think you could ask too much more of what your first team defense did. They gave up 2 first downs on the first 2 plays of the game, gave up a run and a pass that went for more than 10 yards. But then through the rest of the game, I mean, they shut it down. And, when it came to the first team defense, and they left the first team defense out there until early third quarter. They wanted Devin Bush and Joe Schobert to play together a bunch. I thought that they were probably the weakest of the group. They didn't have their best nights. Joe Schobert didn't look, like he was all over everything. Yeah, there was one time I think he was targeted and he kind of got dragged for a first down by the tight end Darren Fells. And Devin Bush, wasn't a supreme playmaker, but they also weren't horrible either. I think they're still both, we got Devin Bush working his way back from his ACL injury, figuring himself out and getting confident running and cutting on that knee again. I've talked about that. And I've also talked about how it might take, a few more weeks of him just playing and getting those instincts back down. But also Joe Schobert, this is his first time with the team. I thought that was, acceptable, but you want to see it to be a little bit better. But, defensive front was phenomenal. When you look at this defense, Alex Highsmith just firing off the ball. He only finished with 1 tackle, didn't get a sack, but he caused an intentional grounding when the quarterback just said, okay, I'm not getting hit by this one. Let me get this out my hand. And he continues to be that guy. He also talked about it after the game. The Steelers, they dominated third downs in this game. When you go and look at the total number, the Lions were 2 of 9 on third downs. Those are drives that the Steelers defense is turning back. They're saying like, hey, offense, get ready to go back out there and put more points up. And that was something that Ben even said. He's like, normally I get, I'm used to kind of thinking like I have some more time on the sideline to analyze what I did, look at the pictures and see what we got to improve. But we didn't have that time because the defense kept getting them the ball back. They were just doing 3 and out after 3 and out after 3 and out. And that's what you want to do as a defense. Now, granted, of course, they laid like a few more turnovers. Joe Hayden got his hands on the ball, and there were a couple times they were really close to getting those. But all in all, you were excited about what your defense did. Joe Hayden came in and came out real quick. You saw a lot of Justin Lane playing out there with James Pierre. I felt the corners didn't have their best night, but it was nothing crazily bad. It was nothing that was like, dooming like, oh, this is a big problem. It's just kind of more of like hey, you know what? The defense as a whole was pretty much locking it down. There were a couple plays the corners could have been a little better on. But all in all, I mean, when you're keeping a team off the board until the fourth quarter, that's happy. Now, I will say the backups on defense really struggled. The Lions scored 20 points in the fourth quarter. I think one of the biggest letdowns of the game was Robert Spillane kind of showing why the Steelers had to go and get a Joe Schobert. There were a couple plays where he kind of had an opportunity to bring down the quarterback, Denny Blau, on a scramble, kind of just slipped and fell in open space, got blocked at the point of attack and kind of sealed off. On a touchdown run by the Lions, just didn't have his best night overall. But again, this guy's going to be a backup. He's going to be a role player for the defense. If he can kind of just fit into those roles and win those limited snaps, that might be better for him than trying to be, the leading linebacker of a group as he had been in the previous games, when Devin Bush hadn't played. But all in all, I mean, you had a really strong performance from a lot of guys. I thought when I looked at it, James Pierre didn't have a bad game. Minka Fitzpatrick was solid. I thought Terrell Edmonds had a really couple nice plays where he came out. Miles Killebrew showing like, hey, he led the team with 5 tackles. That dude's going to be on the roster. He was flying all over the place. He was finding ways to contribute and make plays. Melvin Ingram and Alex Highsmith were just getting after it on the edge, blowing plays up. Trey Norwood, I thought, had a really good special teams tackle. So all in all, really positive stuff across the board. Things you want to clean up. Overall, you want to get a little bit sharper on, in the red zone. Mason Rudolph was moving the ball. Mason was 13 of 18 for 138 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions, still hasn't had a touchdown drive in this preseason, but twice he got into the red zone and even goal-to-goal situations and just couldn't hit the end zone. And he talked about how it was a game of inches after the game. I thought that was, I thought that stunk as a result. But, I saw a lot of people bagging on him for it. I'm like, listen, the Steelers backup quarterbacks, and they looked at Dwayne Haskins. He didn't do a whole lot in this game, 4 of 7 for 56 yards, but they're not asking these guys to be superstars. These guys are to be backup quarterbacks for a reason. Your role is to make sure you don't throw the interception, make sure that you don't lose the team the game. This team's strength is still on defense, and they want the defense to win. And I mean, you go back to the year that Mason started a bunch of games along with Devlin Hodges in 2019, the games that they won, the offense just didn't have to lose the game. They weren't being asked to make miraculous plays or Ben Roethlisberger type of plays as that he's made as a franchise quarterback. It was just like, hey, when something's presented to you, when there's an open receiver underneath, get him the ball, let him make the play happen. And then if you score, you score. If you don't, the defense has your back. That's a formula for winning for defensive football teams, and the Steelers are that. But when Ben's in the game, it's obvious that there's some efficiency, and this was his first go in Matt Canada's offense. All in all, I think Steelers fans, you got a lot to be happy about with this first performance of the season for Ben Roethlisberger under Matt Canada's offense. We will see how this continues to play out. They got one more preseason game. I'm pretty sure we're going to see a lot of reserves in this game as usual. For the fourth preseason game in a year where most teams have 3, the Steelers still had 4 because they had that Hall of Fame game. There'll be guys fighting for roster spots. I'll tell you one guy who's not fighting for a spot. It's Kalen Ballage. I thought he had a really solid night. 7 carries for 30 yards, 4.3 yards per average. That was the highest on the team of anyone that was a running back. Haskins had a 10-yard scramble that was really solid that extended a drive on third down. But Kalen Ballage also caught 2 passes for 17 yards. That's the team's real number 2 running back. Anthony McFarland is going to be worked in because they love his speed and he works out in space. And he did a solid job tonight too. I thought he ran hard. 6 of 11 on the ground for less than 2 yards per carry. But he caught a pass out in the flat that was kind of a designed, roll out and get the ball out in space to him. Kind of an extended run play that is a pass play, but he caught it, took it 12 yards on a really good design play where they kind of had Derek Watt out in front blocking for him. That's the kind of stuff you want to see. All around, solid effort from the Pittsburgh Steelers and getting this preseason win. The wins are never the big deal. It's more so about the performance and how they got there. But I thought that performance was more than satisfactory for most of the team. Still got a lot to clean up. We'll talk more about that on Monday here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Thanks so much for listening or watching. Remember, you can check us out on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts, or Odyssey. We're always cranking out episodes. This was your bonus episode for the weekend. I'll be back Monday with a full episode right here. Check us out. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Carter Critiques. Tell me how you felt about this game. Let me know if you felt like there were certain guys that you liked, certain guys you didn't like. If maybe you felt like my analysis was off somewhere or something that you're really excited about from this game. A lot of things to be excited about, especially Pat Freiermuth taking off in this game. From Chris Carter from the Locked On Steelers podcast, thanks for watching and listening. Be back in your screens really soon.